Hi, I'm Terri Murphy from the Women's Wisdom Network, Realty Times Senior Editor for Realty Times Women in Business, Women in Real Estate in the Men's Room with Murph, and we have a man in the men's room. His name is Tony Martinez. You might have known him. He's been a speaker for almost 30 years, educating and training real estate agents. He's a broker, he's a trainer, he's a coach, and a radio star host. He's adorable. He's made a great choice for a wife named Gabby. We'll talk about her later. He's considered one of the premier speakers in our real estate industry and trained only over 10,000 agents, a little bit of an underachiever. But here's the special part, and you'll notice that from the insignia behind him, short sales process. Tony, you took over the CDPE designation, and that was launched in 2008, correct?
That is correct.
Welcome to Realty Times. You saved CDPE. I would say the legacy that happens from that will go beyond your knowing because of how it helps agents help consumers make informed decisions. Tell us, I knew you were huge on, you actually were the first instructor for CDPE, if I recall.
Well, the course, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I'm totally honored to have this opportunity. The CDPE was started back in 2008 by an amazing power couple, Alex and Katie Sharfin. And they're the ones that grew it to actually become the largest or the fastest growing designation ever in the history of real estate. I was honored to join them late 2008, taught my first class in 2009. So Alex, of course, as the founder, was the first instructor. I was the first non-Alex to teach the class. So it was an amazing journey for me in the years that I spent with that movement, because it truly became a movement to go out there and help people avoid foreclosure. And a lot of folks will say, well, what did the initials stand for? It's Certified Distressed Property Expert or Education. And it's really a collection of individuals that are committed to understanding how to help homeowners avoid foreclosure. And that's what we stand for. That's what we teach. And this is what we're bringing back. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to bring it back.
Well, you do the training, it has been online. Obviously, we did live forever, but I happened to join you on your live one briefly. And you are really, Zoom, as you know, is a different platform than when it's live, but you have this, and sense of humor and dynamism. I think that helps, having done some radio. But you've been in real estate for a very long time. And I guess my question to you is, what happens in the process where we as agents can short circuit that foreclosure process?
Sure.
Because there's some real benefits to doing it before it goes into foreclosure. Let's talk about that for a second.
Great point. And I think we owe it to some of your listening audience, viewing audience, to explain what a short sale is. A lot of times we can kind of take it for granted, but when someone is in foreclosure, they have one or two or three options, right? They can try to work something out with the bank to stay in their property. And that is always the first goal of anybody that truly aspires to what the CDP movement is all about. Our goal is to help people stay in their homes. Now, what if all those options are exhausted? They were not able to modify the loan. They were not able to reinstate the loan, right? They tried everything they could, and it's reached a point that they have to exit the property. Well, if they have equity, they'll be able to do a regular sale. And every single licensed real estate agent that's watching this broadcast should be able to step up and help them with a regular sale. However, what happens if they owe more than the property is worth? Now it's underwater, right? Well, now is when you need some specialized assistance. That's when you need someone that's trained on how to get that bank or banks, the people that are holding those notes, to agree to lose money. And I think most people realize that asking someone, an entity, to lose money is not necessarily an easy task. And the reason we get so passionate about it is foreclosure is very, very devastating to one's credit rating and their future buying power. It has a long-lasting effect. It can stay on their record for up to 7 years. It could cost them their job. It could cost them the opportunity to get another great job because it can impact their security clearance if their job calls for it. So that's what it's really all about, understanding the intricacies of negotiating with a bank to get them to take less, allow the sale to happen, and most importantly, forgive the balance of what is owed so that that homeowner never has any sleepless nights. They've already been through enough sleepless nights already. We want them to be able to go to sleep and relax and know that that chapter of their life is behind them and they can start over.
Well, it also has some benefits to staying in the property a little longer, am I
Yeah.
correct with that?
Well, yes, because one of the first things we have to do is, what are we up against? Are we up against a timeline where a lot of folks that come to my agents, they'll say, the foreclosure is happening in 3 days. What? Okay, no problem. I got this. And then it's a matter of using all the available techniques and strategies to try to get that delay pushed back so that we can have the time to get that property under contract and submit that package to the bank or banks and begin the process of negotiating whether the bank will accept a short payoff or not.
So it's such a brilliant solution. And yet I would venture, and I'm sure you know this better than anyone, how many people in that particular scenario don't know that this is a remedy that's available?
Oh, that's an excellent point. So back in the day, when I was touring the country teaching this and everything was a foreclosure, right? I would say of X number of foreclosures that just took place last month, how much you want to bet that most of those, all of them, well, I always say, imagine this. Do you think they all went into foreclosure knowing that there was a way out, yet opted to go into foreclosure? Of course not. So it falls on us as an industry. We're the frontline troops. If we're not the first one to reach out to the distressed homeowner and say, hold on a second, we know you're going through a tough time. Have you explored what your options are? And I got to tell you, if you have to leave the home, no matter what, why not leave with some dignity? And that's what I always refer to as short sale. When you have no choice but to exit the property, exit with a measure of dignity that doesn't cause anywhere near the harm, long-term effects, negative long-term effects that a foreclosure can have.
And you wonder why people love you. I don't see a problem here. So, but you do talk about the fact that we're the troops. We're supposed to be the resources, the experts. And so getting the certification is obviously going to give you some, I'll say unfair market advantage. And I'll tell you why. As you know, inventory's been tight. We know that there's going to be a wave of distressed properties due to COVID because there were so many complications, not just work, but disintermediations, all kinds of things. But one of the things you talk about in session 3 of the CDPE designation is list like a distressed property expert. Can you give us just a short insight into what that means? Because you and I both know when you're listing in the market, you dominate the market.
Yeah, it's we all know that anyone that has a real estate license, we're taught from the very beginning, become a listing specialist, right? But what we go through is we go through this period of time when you're a brand new licensee, and there's probably quite a few of them that'll be watching this, and they say, but I did go into a listing presentation, and I always use this description. Imagine that listings grew on a tree. And the equity listings, the ones where the seller makes a decision, the traditional ones, they're the sweetest of fruits, but they're at the very top, right? And you're a new licensee and you show up to that presentation, you're looking at that big old tree and say, how am I going to get up there? Then the second agent that's going to be interviewed, because you know they interview more than one, shows up with a big long ladder. Well, I guess they've done this before. And then the heavy hitter, they back up a cherry picker and they go, excuse me, folks. There's the listing. Short sales are the low-hanging fruit. Why are they low-hanging fruit? Because most agents are not familiar with what it is. They've been scared off by myth and misconceptions. They walk around, they're standing around the water cooler and somebody says, oh, I had a short sale once and it took me 8 years just to get an answer. I'm not going to do that. So you know what? My hardest job is to convince agents that there's a need. And I would love to circle back to that because we're having some pushback from people that believe that nothing is coming, that there is no wave coming. But to your question about the listing presentation, short sales are 85% real estate 101. But most people, when they sell, it is a decision they opt to make. They're moving for all the right reasons. When someone is losing their home, the emotions are incredible. They become their own worst enemy. They go through what I call the 7 deadly emotions: apathy, greed, anger. You're faced with all these scenarios. So I have to teach agents how to take the phone call, qualify the individual, find out if all of the pieces are in place. And when they sit down with them, be able to have a heart to serve, a mindset to understand that these individuals are going through a very difficult time. And they have to be the one that guides them through the available options. We have to take that homeowner to a place of acceptance and action. And that's what we cover in session 3.
Might add, can I add an element of
Sure.
safety? Because they're getting hammered by the mortgage company, and understandably, they made a promise and they can't fulfill it. I'm not trying to vilify them, but there's a safety when somebody who understands the process and the system can hold their hand and walk them through it.
Sure.
I mean, because at the end of the day, if they do have to move out of that property, there are other solutions, and that agent, as I like to call a hyper local expert, can really help direct their next steps. Come on, if somebody threw you out of your home right now and you were homeless, I'm going to bet that you don't know what to do.
Absolutely.
And you talked about the intangibles, the devastation, I don't know, would you say the victimization if it's there?
Yeah. This is stigmatization.
Yeah.
People say, and we talk about that. Don't be judgmental. It happens. Those people are not making their payments because we don't know what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
And look, we're in a different situation now from 2008. A lot of the foreclosures that are coming are COVID related. I mean, the last thing any of us were prepared for is a pandemic that was going to shut down basically the entire economy for months at a time, and millions of people being in forbearance and not being able to go back to work and earn their income or their full income. How is that their fault? It's not. And so we have to look past that.
So there's a difference between forbearance and foreclosure.
Yeah, forbearance has taken on a different meaning in the past couple of years. Back in the day, forbearance meant you were behind on your payments, right? And you called the bank and said, hey, good news. The reason why I got behind was I lost my job and I fell behind 3 or 4 months, right? The good news is I'm now gainfully employed again. I can start making my payments going forward, but that $6,000 I owe you, man, I need some help. And then the banks would say, okay, all right, let's talk about this. And if agreed to, they could take what was owed, that 6,000, and spread it out over 2 or 3 years. That was forbearance back then. Now forbearance is, okay, when the CARES Act was passed in 2020, it meant that individuals that were having a hardship or not could simply stop making their payments. And millions took the government up on that option. They simply stopped making payments. Well, there was no penalty, no negative consequences. The 6 months was extended to 12 months and it's been extended again. And the ignorance is insane because people keep forgetting that's not free money.
Exactly.
Those payments that you're not making are going to have to be caught up at some point. And this is part of the educational process that we have to go through, is not only educating consumers, but real estate agents that there is a tsunami coming. Now, it's not 100-foot tsunami like we had in 2008, but maybe it's a 25-footer. And I think that can cause a lot of damage as well, right?
Oh, listen, the one thing we know is that change is imminent. It changes every day. And you're right. No one expected a global pandemic. No one expected, like I say, that, that a taxi would go away or phones would go away. I mean, there's that paradigm that continues to shift. But one of the things you talk about then is if a smart agent wanted to really have that specialization and they went through the course, which is how many sessions to be exact?
Right now, we're offering it in a Zoom format, which has tremendous advantages. It is a tough medium to connect with the audience, and that's why I have to be as animated and passionate as I can to keep them engaged. But we teach it over 5 2-hour sessions, 5 consecutive weeks. I like the fact that I'm spaced training so it doesn't overload them. This kind of material can be very complicated, and when you teach it in one fell swoop, it can be like taking a sip of water from a fire hydrant. Not recommended.
Well, but you do have a beautiful series of downloadable workbooks and checklists and whatever. So it is manageable, but you do have to be present. And like I said, your style is one of the contributing factors there. Talk to us though, if I'm an agent and I know it's going to happen, and it depends on where obviously you are, because there might be more concentrated areas than others.
Absolutely.
What are my lead generation strategies? How do I differentiate myself? Because you and I both know the industry is loaded with acronyms.
Yeah, there's an initial for anything, and I get it, Well, the first thing we preach is that something happens when your antenna go up, and you are now actually actively listening and ready. It's kind of like that whole thing where you go buy a car and you think no one I know owns this car, until you pull up to the first stop light and you look on either side of you, there's that car, right? It's that there's an actual
it's called
term for that.
It's called reticular activating system. It's once you become aware of it, you can't not be aware of it.
Exactly.
So good for you. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what happens. The minute you take the course and you feel comfortable and you are ready to go past your comfort zone, you will hear things that you weren't hearing before. But the most important thing you can do is get proactive. Of course, once somebody is in the foreclosure process, it's out there. It's public information. They can go into the tax sites. They can go into other paid sites and pull up a list of people that are in distress. And then it comes down to how to properly engage them, approach them, right? And I always teach the way I do it. I always tell people work backwards. Well, look at it this way. If someone just misses their first 1 or 2 payments, and it actually takes 4 months, you have to be 120 days delinquent before the servicers can actually file foreclosure action against you. That's a federal law. So they're going to be at least 4 months into it. And they probably think that they can still work something out during the denial stage. What you do is you divide them into A, B, and C. The A category is the one that has a sale date coming up in the next few days, next couple of weeks. You work backwards. That person is out of time. No more excuses. No more time. That person is more likely, if they're going to take any action, they're going to take those actions first. And then you work backwards from there and say, okay, here's someone that the notice has been filed, but they still don't have a sale date. And then the last category would be someone that you become aware has missed a few payments, but the bank hasn't even taken any action on. And what happens is you learn to develop a system. You get your CRM, you make sure you're following up and you're staying in contact, because a lot of folks will wait until the very last moment when they're out of time to take action.
Yeah, you do cover that, where to find properties, prospecting for short sales. And you did mention earlier in our session here that there is a stigma that says, oh, you can't get an answer from the lender. It takes months, it takes years. Has that changed as you develop systems?
Yeah,
it depends on the lender too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. Everything is different. I mean, what was really bad about 2008 and 2009, this is why the CDP was so well received, is there really wasn't anything of this nature available. No one knew what to do. Everyone was absolutely clueless. And we were able to at least inject real estate agents that knew what they were doing. Now, the banks, they know what they're doing now. The people that are typically clueless are the real estate agents of today. Let's face it, Terry, we have 2 different segments, right? We have the CDPs from back in the day that have remained active and done this. And now a lot of them are kind of dusting off the certification, saying, I'm ready to engage. But we have a whole new generation of agents that doesn't know what it is to go through a market like that. So the process of negotiating with the bank, I always believe is best left to the experts. I'm not a believer that the agent should attempt to do the negotiations themselves. I believe it's best left to the attorneys, the title companies, the independent negotiators. So I spend a lot of time teaching the agents how to interview these individuals and how to make sure that you develop a great working relationship, because they're the ones that every single day are on the phone with the lenders. They have the relationships. They know what servicer requires what. An agent should not be experimenting on a live subject, okay? You just don't engage, a short sale. These people are going through a devastating situation and you say, oh, okay, well, let me see if I can maybe try this and see it, make it work. Your job is to engage them. Your job is to get them to take action, take the listing, get a solid contract, make sure you don't run out of time, and then engage the services of a professional to get the bank or banks to approve it, especially an approval that comes with a waiver of a deficiency. People don't know that if you don't properly negotiate a short sale,
You're
we're
still on the
allowed,
hook.
the bank can come after you for the money
Yeah.
that they lost.
Again, this is why you need a certification, kids, because you need to know the nuances. The people that are in that trick bag don't know it. And that's where you get to become that golden resource for these people. I know that it's, like you said, it's sessions. How often do you run the sessions? Because I know you have.
Well, right now, I'm in the process of putting my band back together. I've reached out to some of the former trainers and everything else, so I'm bringing some serious talent back. But right now, the new CDPE has my fingerprints all over it. I took the best of the content of before, and I've re-energized it with my personal touch and my personal experience and everything else. So right now, I'm only teaching them via Zoom, those 5 sessions, but a lot of areas are still not open to live classes, right? I'm expecting that by the fall, that'll be the case. And then agents will have the option of the Zoom. And you know what I love about the Zoom, even if you miss all 5 sessions, they're recorded and you get the recordings that evening. And then the live ones will be available in the markets that, either I have a trainer or somebody wants to fly me out personally, I'll go.
First class.
Well, no, I'm a simple man. And then after that, the third version will be an online, all recorded, and they can just play them all to their heart's content.
Yeah, distance learning. So, you only acquired this in May of this year, which is not so long ago. And yet you've already restructured, reignited, revamped everything. It's pretty exciting. I think that the people that are considering CDPE as part of their pillars of income should know that that there is a membership that supports that for about a year after you get the designation. Is that correct? And tell us, what does that involve?
Great question. So when you take the course, it's not just the course. It's also 1 year's access to our member resource, because you're going to want to have access to tools, the checklists, the disclosures, the forms that we use. Once per quarter, we'll have a webinar, and there'll be topics. I'll have guests on that are either just general industry or specifically the distressed market. But for us, it's about building a community. I call it the CDPE Nation. We got to get the folks engaged. And while we may never achieve the numbers of before, because let's face it, I am not predicting, nor do I ever want our nation to go through what we went through in 2008. This is a niche product now. And I want agents to come in understanding that no, and we don't know what's going to happen, but I'm praying that it never gets to that point. But whether our community is 1,000 strong, 5,000, 25,000, we want to be engaged and we want to be energized. And part of that is to make sure that we're reaching out to our membership on a regular basis and giving them any insights, tools, strategies that they need to succeed.
We like to call it community. Community is what fosters engagement and loyalty, and I want to say reinvigorating what you do and how you do it. I know that you're terrific at that. When you do get that certificate of completion, you can endorse yourself as a CDPE. You can use the logo. There's resources, and obviously there's always you, which is the good thing. Tell us, Tony, what's the best way to learn about CDPE and to reach you?
Well, go to cdpe.com. That'll be the best bet, cdpe.com. You'll find out about our vision, what we do. You'll see what courses are coming up. You may have some former CDPEs that are listening to this. And what I'm doing for the old guard is I'm honoring the old $99 per year price to re-engage and reinstate their membership. So someone that was a former CDP for $99 can come in and they get reactivated. They have access to everything again, and they even get a break on taking the course again, because a lot of them have, they earned the designation many years ago, but haven't been engaged in that arena, and they need to get a refresher course. And one of the most satisfying things for me is to seeing so many of the old guard take my new CDP now and say, you're spot on. You're bringing back all the memories of everything I did right and everything I did wrong. And so cdpe.com, through there, they can email me and everything else. And I'm personally responding to every single one of these because I want to make sure that everyone's questions, concerns are worked through.
That's terrific. You happen to be in Florida.
Yes.
So that is the Eastern Standard Time Zone. What's your email address, Tony?
Support@cdpe.com. Support@cdpe.com.
Cannot be any simpler. Just from the fact that I've been licensed since forever and have been through these markets, I can tell you that the experience of helping someone either stay in their home, save their home, or give them guidance and care in the real estate process is what I believe is our highest purpose as real estate professionals. I want to thank you personally and from Realty Times Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and Women's Wisdom Network for helping those people out there that'll go far beyond your knowing. We tend to be transactional, but when we really look at what we do and how we do it, we literally impact lives. People live their lives in the places and through our direction, and clearly through this kind of guidance and expertise. Having a CDPE is going to help a lot of people. I want to thank you so much for joining us here. I know we're going to have you back because as this rolls out, I know that you will have some new tips for us to always enhance and advance our skill sets in the real estate services business. Thank you so much for joining us, Tony. I'm Terri Murphy for the Women's Wisdom Network and Realty Times. Join us again for another great segment with Tony Martinez coming up soon.